Thank you very much. Good morning, Collision. It's great to see all of you here this morning. I am told that this conference is the hottest conference going on in tech. It's gone from 500 people to 20,000 people in the course of the last 5 years in the US and of course in Europe. A big part of the audience and hopefully good speakers, so I'm not going to let you down. I've got exactly 13 minutes and I like now short speeches, sort of like this new TED Talk. And I'm going to talk about the revolution that's going on in the cloud in the enterprise, because I think it's highly relevant in terms of what we, in the day and age that we live in. And I think it's one of the most exciting times in the technology industry for every one of you and your colleagues. This word digital transformation has become more than just a buzzword, it's a reality. Every business today, as they think about their future, is a technology business. If you're in retail, you're a technology business. If you're in agriculture, you're becoming a technology business. And software is at the core of a lot of what that happens. So we think this world of traditional businesses and digital businesses are converging. It is the top item that boardrooms are talking about today in terms of their evolution. How do we become increasingly a technology business? And you can see this across all the countries in the world. This is the top topic of conversation. And in that, cloud computing has now become a de facto topic that the boards also want to talk about. This is no longer a CIO topic. CEOs want to know how they can lower cost and complexity in the cloud. This is a survey done by IDG of where cloud computing has been in the course of the last 5 or 6 years. And tallying up to 2016, you can see that over 70% say that they plan to use this or are already using it. And increasingly, that's a number we think will approach closer to 100%. When you think about how various different influential groups are in driving cloud computing, certainly the CIO is very important, but the C-suite, the CEOs and the CFOs are certainly worried and thinking about how this is going to be something they turn from a potential risk in an organization to a competitive advantage. When you think about what are the types of things that drive cloud computing, certainly there's a reduction of cost and complexity is at the top of people's consideration in terms of how they think about cloud computing in the future. Now, it started off in the consumer world, okay? Yahoo Mail, Google Mail, but today, with the advent of what we've been doing at VMware, Amazon AWS, Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud, Salesforce, Adobe, many other key companies, this is a top area of focus. And I want to give you 5 quick guidelines for every one of you and your colleagues of how you can think about what are the priorities. But before that, just a little bit of a state of the cloud. If you look back, about 10, 11 years ago, 98% of workloads sat in what we would call traditional IT. And what's happened over the course of the last couple of years has been an advance in this category of private and public cloud. Public cloud is where you can use this and everybody has got appropriate places in that rental parts of cloud computing. Private clouds are where it might be dedicated or it might be just serving up to a few particular clients in highly secure environments. You can see this is now becoming 13% as of 2011. Fast forward to last year, it's now about 17%, 27%, 160 million workloads, and traditional IT is shrinking. But it's still a very big part of the focus of the cloud. And from the research we've done and working with analysts, there's a point in time coming very soon where 50% of all IT workloads will have moved over into this world of private and public cloud, and that's 2021. And inside that time, 30% will be in the public cloud, 20% in public cloud, but 50% still in traditional IT. And inside that 50% of the 30% of the public cloud, rather, there's 14% we believe in SaaS and 16% in infrastructure as a service by that point in time. So the key point, the first point I want to make here in terms of the guidelines of the way you think about the enterprise cloud revolution is you need a strategy that embraces hybrid cloud computing. Because the world of traditional IT, private cloud computing, and public cloud computing is here to stay. If you are a new company that's born like yesterday or in the last year, you might have everything that you built to be a SaaS application in a public cloud. But if you think about what you as entrepreneurs are going to be doing to serve traditional companies, maybe it's a Coca-Cola, maybe it's a Nike, maybe it's a global company in India or China, this world of traditional IT and private cloud and the notion of a hybrid cloud is very important. And you need to have a software solution that can bridge between the private cloud and the public cloud. Okay? Hardware-based solutions are harder to work because the public cloud is not built on any one person's hardware. It's often built on white box capability. So a software-based bridge that allows you to bridge this is very key for things like security and management. We'll talk about that later. Number two, key principle and guideline I'd give to every one of you is, as you are building your companies or as you're advising clients, the first and easiest place to start is applications. Everything in IT starts with applications. When you drive an application strategy that's driven to the cloud first, and then the second place we see evolution is infrastructure, and the third, platform. It's sort of in that order. You would think it might be the opposite, infrastructure, platform, and then apps. That's a bottom-up way of looking at it. We think the way the world is working is people are driving their applications first to the cloud, involving their infrastructure in parallel. Now, of course, if you are starting today, you want to be thinking about all three in parallel. And if you look at the stats, again from IDG, some of these applications that are very naturally moving to the cloud, and if you are starting a company or advising clients, things like email systems today, between Office 365 and Google Mail, even in the enterprise, you would be pretty much, sort of in behind times if you aren't thinking about the cloud for email, for collaboration, for things like CRM, sharing of documents, even places like HR, traditional HR, moving very quickly to the cloud. It might be a while before very proprietary applications like financials or core banking, some of the heart and soul of companies and their competitive advantage, maybe billing systems, those might take some time. But these SaaS applications are very important. And then as you can see in this stat here, you'll see that while 43% of IT is focused on that SaaS applications, you can see the number 2 category is infrastructure as a service. Okay? These are places where you can be working with companies like Amazon, AWS, places where we work, for example, to enable those public clouds in infrastructure. And quickly, you're going to start seeing an increasing focus on platform as a service. And increasingly, also, you're seeing this percentage of IT that's being spent in this overall category of cloud in the enterprise starting to increase. We track this survey and this data religiously every 6 to 12 months. Okay, those are the first 2 guidelines. Number 3, as you think about hybrid cloud computing, as you think about your applications or your infrastructure platform, probably the most important thing that CIOs and C-level folks who are investing in the cloud care about is security. And you need to be thinking about 2 aspects of security, network security and data security. And you need a security architecture that's actually built in as opposed to that's bolted on. I like to use the analogy or metaphor of vitamins. If you've got a good diet, you probably don't need to take supplemental vitamins. If you don't, you probably need to take supplemental vitamins. Security is just like vitamins. You need to be thinking about it as baked into your infrastructure. And if you don't, of course, you're going to have to bolt it on. And that's a very natural way in which you want to be thinking about security. When we look at, again, all the data that we track in the C-suite in terms of how people think about their cloud strategy, the notion of network security and the way in which data security evolves are the top 1 or 2, and increasingly becoming something. Now, in the past, people were so scared about it, they didn't even go to the cloud. Today, there's a lot of advances in both the way in which network security is being done in a software-defined way. There's lots of advances in the way data and things like backup and disaster recovery are being done. So people are getting a lot more faith to do it, but it's important that you're able to guide your companies to be able to address these 2 areas of key security. So security and data concerns can often trump the cost savings, so to speak. You want to make sure that while you're talking about cost and complexity reduction, you're also driving the benefits that you can drive in data and security. Now, the last 2, before I wrap up, I like to say often that the hard stuff in life is the soft stuff. Okay, and the soft stuff in life is the hard stuff. So often we end up coming to many of these conferences, we talk a lot about technology, the types of things that need to happen, and people and process often are much more important than product in terms of being able to get this right. And I want to share with you a couple of leadership perspectives which you would just dismiss as saying, well, that's kind of the organizational aspect of things. I have found in my 25 years in IT that statement to be really true. The soft stuff becomes the hard stuff becomes the soft stuff. So as you think about this, the traditional IT way of doing things was a waterfall way of doing things. Waterfall means you do step 1, then you do step 2, and you do step 3. In fact, a lot of analysts a few years ago we're talking about this thing of bimodal IT, which meant, you have one group that does traditional enterprise, you have another group that does cloud, and you kind of do this. I'm here to tell you, I might annoy a few people, that that's dead, okay? The world is increasingly moving agile. And many of you folks who are young, I see a number of young folks in the audience, you get this. The largest auto companies, like Porsche, are embracing agile. So you need to be thinking about ways by which notions of waterfall or bimodal, I believe, are dead. And increasingly, companies are building things on, for example, open source capabilities. If you look at a project like Cloud Foundry, it's all driven on open source capabilities and agile methodologies to the way in which you build. We think that's super, super important to the way in which cloud computing is going to evolve into the future. And this requires a mindset. Many of you who are young in the audience can drive that mindset. But if you're experienced and you're also in the audience or watching this, you need to be able to be a change agent in taking that traditional waterfall into a world that's increasingly agile. And number 5, the last thing I would leave you with is, it's better, I believe, in all of the things that you do in life, but certainly in what we do in technology, to fail forward rather than stay stagnant, not trying. In other words, I advise teams, whether it's the teams I manage or lead, that I would rather that you attempted something, and as you attempted that, if you failed, that's okay. Pick up, learn, move on. The good news about Agile is you are going to make a mistake and you want to move forward. I'll tell you one short story about our own journey in the cloud computing world. At VMware, 4 or 5 years ago, we thought we could be a public cloud ourselves. We had a service called VMware vCloud Air. And what we found over the course of the last 2 years, it was very difficult, capital intensive, and we had to pull back. In fact, just a couple of weeks ago, we announced that we're divesting that business. Now, I wouldn't consider that a failure. I would consider that a learning experience, provided we don't make the same mistake over and over again. And that's a key aspect of how we try to build learning into our organization. So I would encourage every one of you, as you think about your future, especially if you're on your first or second project, if you're building a startup, it's all about going for that gusto in terms of your energy and passion. And if you stumble and fall, pick up, learn from it, move forward. The world is filled with entrepreneurs who have made mistakes and come back. Of course, if you're making the same mistake over and over again, Einstein called that insanity, if you're making the same mistake over and over again. But if you've learned from it, I think there's a tremendous opportunity ahead. So number 1, let me review again the 5 guidelines. Hybrid cloud computing is here to stay. Number 2, as you think about your strategy, drive SaaS first, IaaS second, and then PaaS. Ideally, if you can start, do them in parallel. Network and data security, paramount to the way in which people think about it, often trumping cost. Number 4, waterfall models are dead. The future is an agile world. And number 5, don't worry about failing forward if you're moving forward. Thank you very much. If you want, you can follow me on Twitter @Spoonen. I look forward to seeing many of you, and have a great conference. Thank you.